I always thought life had a way of surprising you when you least expected it, and my story is no exception. My name is Anna Richards, and at 39, I found myself walking a path I never anticipated. As an event planner, my life was a whirlwind of meetings, decorations, and endless checklists, but personally, I was alone. Not lonely, mind you, but alone. That changed when I met Daniel Evans. He wasn't your typical suede businessman. He was a widower and a father with a soft-spoken nature that was disarming. His 17-year-old daughter, Claire, was the spitting image of him, both in looks and her reserved demeanor. Thus, our meeting was accidental, a mix-up at a mutual friend's party. We laughed it off, and that laugh turned into conversations, dinners, and eventually something deeper. When Daniel proposed, it felt like a dream. I remember thinking, can I really step into this new role? But love, it seems, knows no bounds, and I said yes. The wedding was a simple affair, but what came after was anything but simple. Transitioning to a homemaker was tough. I traded my spreadsheets for recipe books, my late nights at the office for evenings trying to connect with Claire. She was polite, yes, but distant. Whenever I tried to reach out, her responses were short, her eyes always darting away. I wanted so badly to bridge that gap. One evening, I made her favorite spaghetti bolognese. I called her down for dinner, my voice slightly shaky. "Claire, dinner's ready. Her favorite tonight." She descended the stairs slowly, her eyes scanning the table. "Thanks," she muttered, not meeting my gaze. I tried to initiate conversation. "So how was school today? Any interesting classes?" She shrugged, twirling the spaghetti absent-mindedly. "It was okay, nothing special." But the silence that followed was heavy. I watched her push the food around her plate, feeling a pang of disappointment. "If there's anything you'd like to talk about, I'm here," I offered gently. Claire looked up, her expression unreadable. "I'm fine." "Anna, thanks." Then she was back to her meal, the walls around her as high as ever. That night, as I lay in bed next to Daniel, I couldn't help but feel a chasm widening between Claire and me. I thought about the family I was trying to fit into, the daughter who saw me as an intruder, and the man who was caught in between. As I drifted off to sleep, the question loomed in my mind, can I really make this work? Becky's life as a homemaker was a stark contrast to the bustling event halls and deadlines I was used to. The quietness of our home was punctuated only by the soft clinks of cutlery and the occasional murmur of the television. So Daniel tried to bridge the gap, but his work often kept him away, leaving Claire and me in a silent dance of avoidance. One afternoon, I decided to tackle the garden, hoping to make it a place where we could all... I was pruning the roses when Claire came home from school. She walked past me without a word. "Hi, Claire." "How was school?" "Fine," she replied, her voice flat, not breaking her stride. I watched her disappear into the house, my heart sinking a bit. "One day at a time, Anna," I whispered to myself. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. My efforts to connect with Claire felt like whispers in a storm. She remained polite but distant. There were times when I caught her looking at me with something akin to curiosity, but it would vanish as quickly as it appeared. One evening, I prepared a small family dinner, hoping to bring some warmth into our home. I set the table, lighting candles to add a cozy ambience. Daniel was already seated when Claire came down. "Wow, this looks wonderful," Daniel said, his eyes lighting up. "Daniel? I thought we could use a nice family dinner," I replied, smiling despite the fluttering in my stomach. Claire took her seat, her eyes scanning the table. "It's nice," she said, a hint of surprise in her voice. We began to eat, and I decided to broach a topic that was safer than most. "Claire, I was thinking of redoing the garden. We add some new flowers or small vegetable patch. What do you think?" She paused, her fork midair. "A vegetable patch might be nice. I can connect some carrots or something." Encouraged, I continued, "That's a great idea. Maybe we could work on it together." Claire's expression changed, her walls coming back up. "I don't know. I'm pretty busy with school." Then the conversation fizzled out, leaving an awkward silence. Daniel tried to fill it with talk about his work, but the effort felt strained. As I lay in bed that night, the house enveloped in silence. I couldn't shake off the feeling of isolation. But despite living under the same roof, we were worlds apart. That to the question from my wedding night returned, more persistent than ever. Can I really make this family work? Months passed, and the distance between Claire and me seemed to stretch further. But Daniel's absences due to work trips became more frequent, and with each departure the house felt colder, the silence more profound. One Saturday morning, I decided to bake Claire's favorite, chocolate chip muffins, hoping to break the ice. As they baked, the sweet aroma filled the kitchen. Maybe this will bring a smile to her face, I thought. When Claire came down for breakfast, her eyes lingered on the muffins. "Did you bake these?" she asked, her tone neutral. "Yes, I remembered you liked them," I replied, hopeful. She took one, biting into it without a word. My heart raced as I waited for her reaction. But she ate in silence, her expression unreadable. I gathered my courage. "Claire, I know things have been awkward between us, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. I care about you, and I want us to get along." She paused, muffin in hand, and looked at me for a moment. For a moment, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Was it vulnerability? But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a coldness that made me shiver. I don't need your care," she said sharply. "I have a mother. You're not her." Her words were like a punch to the gut. I struggled to find words, but none came. The room felt like it was spinning. "Claire, I never meant to replace your mother. I started, but she cut me off." "Just what? Play happy families? You think baking muffins will make everything okay? You're not my family, you never will be." Her voice was low but laced with bitterness. She left the muffin half-eaten and walked out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there, the weight of her words crushing me. Later that day, I sat in the garden, lost in thought. The roses I had tended to with so much care seemed to mock me with their vibrant colors. Was I naive to think I could make this work? I wondered. Daniel called that night. "How are things at home?" he asked, his voice tired. I hesitated, then replied, "Everything's fine. We're doing okay." But as I hung up, a tear rolled down my cheek. The truth was we were far from okay. As Claire's words echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the divide that seemed impossible to bridge. That night, as I lay in bed, the house enveloped in silence. I felt more alone than ever. And the question that haunted me since my wedding night loomed larger, its presence more oppressive. Can I ever be a part of this family? The tension in the house reached a boiling point as autumn faded into winter. Each day felt like walking on eggshells, with Claire's cold glares and my failed attempts to make amends. One chilly evening, Daniel was away again, and the house felt particularly empty. I decided to organize the attic, hoping to distract myself from the heavy atmosphere. As I was sorting through old boxes, I heard the front door slam shut. Claire was home from school. Hesitantly, I called out, "Claire, I'm making dinner soon. Is there anything special you'd like?" No response. I sighed, feeling the familiar sting of rejection, and continued with my task. Moments later, Claire stormed into the attic, her eyes blazing. "Why are you going through our things?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger. Startled, I replied, "I was just cleaning." "Claire, I thought it would be nice to organize a bit." "This is not your house to rearrange," she shouted. "You have no right to touch our memories." I tried to calm her down. "Claire, please. I didn't mean to upset you. But she was beyond reason. You just what?" I just wanted to erase my mom's presence. Take over everything. That wasn't it at all, but before I could explain, she grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "I want you to leave. Get out of our lives." Her words were like a physical blow, and I struggled to free myself. "Claire, stop. You're hurting me." But she was relentless. She dragged me downstairs and out the back door to an old tool shed. I couldn't believe what was happening. "Claire, please, this isn't right," I pleaded as she shoved me inside the dark, musty shed. She slammed the door shut, and I heard the sound of the lock clicking into place. "Stay here and think about what you've done," she yelled through the door. I was in shock. The shed was cold, cramped, and barely lit by a sliver of light through a small window. I banged on the door, shouting for Claire to let me out, but there was no response. 6 hours passed, the cold seeped into my bones. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to stay warm, my mind racing. How could things have gone so wrong? I wondered. I thought about Daniel, about the home I had tried to create, about the family I longed to be a part of. But in that dark, cold shed, those dreams felt like distant fantasies. Night fell, and the shed grew colder. I realized I had my phone in my pocket. Trembling, I dialed Rachel's number, my closest friend. "Rachel, it's Anna. I need your help," I said, my voice cracking. "What's wrong? Where are you?" Rachel's voice was laced with concern. I'm locked in the shed. Claire, she locked me in here. I don't know what to do." There was a pause and then Rachel's steady voice. "Stay calm. I'm coming over right now." As I waited in the darkness, the gravity of the situation hit me. My stepdaughter had locked me in a shed. The family I had tried so hard to be a part of was falling apart at the seams. I was trapped, both physically and emotionally, in a situation I never imagined. And the question that had haunted me since my wedding night now seemed to have a clear, painful answer. No, I may never truly be a part of this family. The darkness in the shed felt suffocating, the cold air biting at my skin. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as I sat there, lost in a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. Then I heard footsteps outside, followed by Rachel's voice. "Lena, are you in there?" She called out, her voice laced with worry. "Yes, I'm here," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. There was a clatter as Rachel worked on the lock, and then the door swung open, flooding the shed with light. She gasped upon seeing me huddled in the corner. "Anna, what happened?" Rachel asked, helping me to my feet. I stepped out into the cool night air, my legs weak. "Claire locked me in here," I managed to say, the reality of the situation sinking in. Rachel wrapped her coat around me. "Let's get you inside. You need to warm up." Once inside, Rachel made me a hot cup of tea, her eyes filled with concern. "We need to tell Daniel about this," she insisted. I nodded, knowing she was right. I picked up my phone, my fingers trembling, and dialed Daniel's number. He answered on the second ring. "Anna, is everything okay?" Daniel's voice was filled with concern. "Daniel, I need to tell you something," I began, my voice shaky. "Claire locked me in the shed. I was there for hours until Rachel came." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "She did what?" "Anna, I'm so sorry. I'm coming home right now." After hanging up, the weight of the situation settled heavily on my shoulders. This was more than just teenage rebellion. It was a cry for help, a sign of deeper issues that we had failed to address. Daniel arrived early the next morning, his expression a mix of worry and anger. He enveloped me in a tight hug, whispering apologies. "We need to talk to Claire," he said firmly. Claire was in her room, her demeanor defiant yet vulnerable. Daniel spoke first, his voice stern. "Claire, what you did to Anna is unacceptable. You could have seriously hurt her. We need to understand why you did it." Claire's eyes flickered with various emotions, then settled on a sullen defiance. "I wanted her to leave. She's not my mom. She's nothing to us." Daniel's expression softened. "Claire, I know it's been hard, but Anna is part of our family now. We need to find a way to live together." But Claire was unyielding. "No, she's not my family. She never will be." The conversation went in circles, with Claire's resentment and hurt spilling out. It was clear that this was more than just about me. It was about her mother's absence, about the changes she couldn't accept. In the end, Anil suggested therapy for Claire, a proposition she reluctantly agreed to. But the rift between us remained a chasm that seemed too wide to bridge. That night, as I lay in bed, the events of the past few days replayed in my mind. The hope I once had for this family was now tinged with sadness and uncertainty. The tin and the question that had once haunted my thoughts now seemed to whisper a disheartening answer. That maybe some rifts are too deep to heal. The days following the shed incident were filled with an uneasy quiet. But Claire's therapy sessions began, and while there was no immediate change, there was a sense of a slow, albeit reluctant, shift in her demeanor. Daniel and I tried to navigate this new reality, often finding ourselves tiptoeing around both Claire and each other. The strain was palpable, the atmosphere in the house charged with unspoken words and buried emotions. Then one evening the delicate balance we were trying to maintain came crashing down. Daniel had returned from a business trip, and we were sitting at the dinner table when Claire announced, out of the blue, that she was moving out. I can't live here anymore," she declared, her voice firm. I need my own space." Daniel and I exchanged a look of surprise and concern. "Claire, are you sure about this?" I asked gently. "Yes, I've made up my mind," she replied, her eyes avoiding mine. Daniel tried to reason with her, but Claire was adamant. She had already found a place and was planning to move in a few days. But as she left the table, the finality of her decision hung in the air like a thick fog. That night, I lay awake thinking about Claire's impending departure. A part of me felt relieved, but another part felt a deep sense of sadness. We had failed to come together as a family, and now we were falling apart. The day Claire moved out was a somber one. She packed her things quietly, her movements mechanical. But right when it was time to leave, she hesitated at the door, her resolve faltering for a moment. "They care." "Claire," I said softly, my voice tinged with sadness. She nodded, not meeting my eyes, and then she was gone. In the weeks that followed, we heard bits and pieces about Claire's new life. It wasn't as glamorous as she had imagined. The freedom she sought came with its own set of challenges: financial struggles, loneliness, and the harsh realities of independence. One rainy evening, I received a call from Claire. Her voice was different, softer, more reflective. "Lana, I think I made a mistake," she admitted. "The chance. Living on my own isn't what I thought it would be." Her words were a mixture of regret and a subtle plea for help. It was a moment of reckoning, a realization that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Daniel and I talked about it, and agreed that while Claire needed to learn from her choices, our door would always be open for her. It was a step towards healing, a faint glimmer of hope in a long, dark tunnel. As I lay in bed that night, the sound of rain gently tapping against the window, I realized that sometimes life's hardest lessons are learned through experience. And perhaps Just perhaps there was still a chance for our family to mend its broken pieces. The house felt different without Claire, quieter, yes, but also missing a vital piece of its soul. Daniel and I found ourselves in a strange limbo, adjusting to the new normal while grappling with the absence of his daughter. Then one crisp Saturday morning, Clay called. Her voice was hesitant, a stark contrast to the confident, often brash tone we were used to. Can we talk?" she asked. We agreed to meet at a local cafe, a neutral ground away from the echoes of our home. Claire was already there when we arrived, looking smaller, somehow more vulnerable. The conversation was awkward at first, filled with pauses and uncertain glances. But then slowly, the walls began to crumble. Claire spoke of her struggles, the loneliness, the financial hardships, the realization that independence wasn't the answer to her problems. "I thought I wanted freedom," she confessed, her eyes downcast. "But I didn't realize what I was giving up. I'm sorry for everything." Daniel reached across the table, taking her hand. "Fictions. We all make mistakes, Claire. What matters is that we learn from them." I chimed in, my voice gentle. "But we're here for you, Claire. We always have been." The air around us felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. Isn't a complete resolution, nor was it an instant fix to our fractured family. But it was a start, a step towards healing and understanding. In the weeks that followed, it moved back in. The transition was not without its challenges, but there was a newfound effort from all sides. We began to communicate more, to listen, and to try to understand each other's perspectives. One afternoon I found Claire in the garden, her hands deep in the soil of the vegetable patch we had talked about months ago. She looked up, a faint smile on her lips. "I'd give this a try," she said, a hint of her old self peeking through. I smiled back, joining her. "I think that's a wonderful idea." As we worked side by side, planting seeds that would one day blossom. I couldn't help but see the metaphor in our actions. That night, as I lay next to Daniel, his hand in mine, I realized that families, like gardens, need time, care, and patience. The road ahead would have its share of bumps and turns, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of hope. Perhaps the question that had once haunted me had found its answer not in the certainty of yes or no, but in the journey itself and the lessons we learn along the way.